In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the condenser on this Volkswagen Beetle. Let's get into it. Lift the battery cover. I'm going to disconnect the negative terminal first using a 10mm wrench. Take that off, take the negative cable off. Now you can take the positive cable off the same way using the 10mm wrench. Loosen that up. Slide that out of the way. Right down here, we're going to take the battery mount off. Use a 13mm socket. Take the bolt out. Get the bolt out, and then the bracket. Where the power steering reservoir is, there should be a bolt. You want to take that bolt out. This vehicle doesn't have it, just to get that out of the way so that we can slide the battery out. Just grab the battery. If you have a handle, you want to use that. Tip it up. And we can slide it out. There's a lever right here, and it's sticking a little bit, so I'm just going to use some silicone spray and just spray where that lever is. Now, we removed the battery to do this. You don't necessarily have to remove the battery, but it's easier to see or access where the lever is. So we can slide that little lever up. Just spray a little more spray in there. Go. That's all the way up. Grab the light, and the light slides right out. Disconnect the connector right here. Just push down on the tab. It slides out. You can see how this locking system works when you move this lever up and down. So with it down, that's when you push the light in, and then as you push it in and close it, it will lock it in place. So it can get gunked up pretty good with some dirt and debris, so it may be difficult to move. And just slide the light right out. Disconnect the connector, push down on the tab, and it slides out. Underneath here, if you have any push tabs or clips, you want to disconnect those. This vehicle does not have it. It should be connected in these areas. So pull those out. Disconnect this connector right here. That's for the ambient air temp sensor. If you have to, you can put a pick in here or a straight blade screwdriver. Slide that off. Then you want to disconnect the fog lights. This vehicle has aftermarket fog lights wired in. So we're just going to disconnect those. But there should be a connector right there. So disconnect those on both sides. On the side markers, you want to disconnect the connectors for those. You can push down on the tab, or you can grab the socket and just twist it and just slide it out. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. In the trunk, access where the spare tire is, and then you want to grab this key. That's the wheel lock if your vehicle has it, and then this is for the little cap. Just grab that. You should have a little center cap here. You want to take a straight blade screwdriver and just get underneath, pop that off. Then you can take this tool that you got out of the trunk, go in one of those holes, and then you just pull real hard, straight back. And that pulls that cap off. And you can access the lug nuts. Take the lock, that's going to go on the keyed one. I'm going to remove the front wheels using a 17mm socket. Take the lug nuts off. Or lug bolts. And when I get to the last one, I'm just going to hold the wheel from falling off. And grab the wheel, slide it off. There should be 3 screws on the side here. You want to take those out with a T25. This one doesn't have the bottom one. take those out. And then just to get a little bit more room, I'm going to take these ones out as well. You can use the same T25 socket. Then there's a screw that goes from the bumper into the fender. Take that out. Same T25 socket. Just to get more room, I'm going to take this bolt out, use the T25 socket. There we go. Pull this cover down and out of your way a little more. You're going to need to take the screws out here. There's 3 back here, 1 down here, 1 over here, and there's 1 that's hidden up near the shock or the strut. Take all those out, and you can take this panel down and just slide it out. Underneath here, there's 2 screws. Use a T30 socket. Take those out. Take those both out. There's 2 nuts down here and then 2 nuts further up. You can use a 10mm socket. Take those out. Using a 10mm socket, there's a bolt here and a bolt up there. Take those out. Let's do the same on the other side. Take this cover out. I'm going to take the nuts out on this side the same way. We're going to take these 4 bolts out. Use a T30 socket. Now we're going to take all these bolts out on top of the fender. Use a T30 socket. Do the same on the other side. Now you want to pull the fender out a little bit. Might be stuck a little bit, just like that. Then the fender and the front bumper are going to come off all as one. slide it forward like that. Do the same on the other side. Just a little bit stuck. Pull it out. And slide it forward. Very carefully. Grab both sides. It's a good idea to have a helper doing this with you, but you can do it by yourself. Slowly work it back and forth. It slides out. There we go. Now we're going to take these bolts out. There should be one right there. Use a 10mm socket. Take that out. There's one underneath here as well. Now using a 13mm socket, take these bolts out. And that's going to be loose. Do the same on the other side. So make sure you hold it while you take that last one out. And it just slides right out. Underneath the car, on the driver's side of the radiator, there's a drain right here. You want to take a drain bucket, have it underneath, and then we'll loosen up this plug. It's going to drain out. Make sure you don't do this while the vehicle's hot. I'm going to make sure it's cool. And to speed it up a little bit, I'm going to open the cap, and that'll help the coolant drain out faster. There we go. Now we can close this up. We're going to remove the lower radiator hose. Use a straight blade screwdriver. Move this clip up. Just pop it up. And you just want to make sure you have a drain bucket underneath. Get a little coolant coming out. There is a connector over here. Attach the hose. You want to take that off. Just pop that out. You can use a straight blade screwdriver. There you go. A little more coolant coming out. Set that aside. Some vehicles may have a plate right here or a cover, plastic cover. You want to take that shield off if that's in your way. There should be some fasteners, a 10mm nuts on the sides. Take those off. There's a connector right here. You want to disconnect that connector. Just push down on the tab. Slide it out of the way. There's another connector here. Disconnect that. Just slide it out. Just like that. This bracket, you want to move this connector out of the bracket because that's going to stay with the fans. So just try to slide this up. Just separate that and then slide that out of the way. There's another connector right here. So if you get in here with a pick and slide that back a little bit, you can release that connector. Those are all disconnected and out of the way. Now I'm going to use a 6mm hex key. You can use a socket as well. Loosen up this right here, this bolt. Only do this if you had the refrigerant extracted. Loosen that up. And then you're going to hear a little bit of a vacuum once I separate these two hoses. It's always a good idea to wear safety glasses as well while doing this, just in case. It's kind of stuck together a little bit. go, it's separated. A little corrosion in there. Set that aside. I'm going to take this shield off. There's a wire tie holding this one on here, but you may have a clip or a push pin. Take that off. Then you have these push pins. You want to pop those out. You can just pull those down. Or you might need a trim tool. Pop those down. And we have a screw in the back here. Then use a T20 socket. Get that screw out. Now we can take this hose off. Use the 6mm hex key or socket. Take this bolt off. Take that off. You may get a little bit of oil coming out of here, so just be careful. Nope, no oil. We're good. Let's put that bolt back in there for now. Here, we're going to take these two bolts out, one on this side, one on the other. Use a 13mm socket. Keep in mind, you're going to have the whole support loose once you do that. You can just pull this forward a little bit. You still have some things to disconnect underneath here. Disconnect this cable right here. Just slide that out of the bracket. And then there's a wire right here. I'm going to go over here and disconnect it over here. This is for the hood switch. We can put this down a little bit. You can just take a pick or a screwdriver, pop that out, slide that to the side. Then we have the upper radiator hose. We're going to take it off the same way as the lower one. There's a little clip in there, and slide the clip out. Just rock it back and forth a little bit. Just using a pry bar, just prying back and forth a little bit, being careful not to break anything. There we go. Peel that off, and the whole assembly comes right out. We're going to take these screws out, use a T30 socket. There's two on this side, two on the other side. Then this piece can slide up and out of the way. Take these screws out here, use a T30 socket. On the other side, the same, T30 socket. And there's another one right here. Use the same T30 socket. Separate that. And the condenser will come right up and out of the way. If your condenser does not come with an accumulator, you can just take this bolt out here and this bolt out here and slide that over, transfer it over to the new one. I'll slide this in position. We'll get the screws started. And get this top screw started so you know you're on the right side. Which this is actually the bottom of the radiator. Just get that started. And get the other bolts started. And once they're all started, then we can snug those down. Now slide this back into position. Get these bolts started. Snug those down. With the upper radiator hose, I'm going to replace the O-ring in here. Just use a pick. Just get underneath the O-ring. Slide it out. Here's the new O-ring. You'll just slide it in the same way the old one came out. You can use a little bit of coolant to lubricate it. You can click that, lock back down. We'll do the same on this one. Take that O-ring out, put the new one in. Line it up, just lubricate it with some coolant and lock that down in place. Now just connect the cable, same way it came off. Slide it in there. And then connect this connector. It's a little bit easier to do it now. Lock that in place, and then there's a little, you can slide that in place there. Just line this up. Take the 2 bolts, get those started. Right there and right there. You can kind of see where they were, so you want to line those up and tighten those down. Tighten those down. We're going to hook up the top radiator hose, just line it up and push it in, lock it in place. You can tell when it clicks in that it's secure. Now we're going to attach this connector right here, line that up, make sure it clicks, and that's good. And these connectors right here. This one's going to go here, lock that down, and then same with this other one. Those are for the coolant fans. And lock that one down. Now the coolant hose, lower radiator hose, line that up. And lock it in place. Take the AC line, line that up. And push it in. And take the bolt, get that started. And we'll tighten that down. Just use the Allen key. And now we're on the other side, and we'll put this hose on. Just get this lined up. Get the bolt started and tighten it down. And snug it down. Now I'm going to take the crash bar, line this up. Take 2 of the bolts, get those started. Let's get the top bolts started on both sides. And put the other nuts and bolts on. You want to line this up as close as possible when it came off. And tighten those down. Now put the other bolts in. You can use a straight blade screwdriver and line this up a little bit easier. Try to get that in the same location when it came apart. And tighten those down. Perfect. Now we're going to install the front bumper and fenders. It's easier to do this with a friend. Just get everything lined up. But you're going to get this lined up over here. All right. That's lined up there. Try to get the fenders lined up. You can see where they're supposed to go. Get all those studs lined up. When you're putting the bumper and fenders in, you want to pay attention to these tabs in the headlight well right here. Those all have to be lined up. So before you put all the bolts in, just make sure those are lined up or you're going to have to adjust. We're going to put the bolts, get those started. Push the fenders a little bit. Get everything to line up. And then these pads, these line up here on both sides where the hood meets. Get those in the right position. Those to line up. Looks good. There we go. Now we're going to tighten all these down. Just snug. And the bolts, it goes right there. Underneath, should be two there, put the other one there as well. And this bolt over here, or screw, that one's started. Once you get those, then we can tighten those all down. Tighten that one. And tighten these nuts up. And tighten these bolts down. Now you can do the same on the other side. Now we're going to put the side marker lights in, get those lined up. Twist those to the right. Do that on both sides. And then if you had fog lights that were connected, you want to reconnect those. Do the same to this side. Tighten that down and connect the fog light. And connect the connector for the ambient temp sensor. Just lock it down. We're going to reinstall this panel, line this up. It's going to go right there and right there. Push that up. If you need to, you can use a socket. Just push on it. Make it a little easier for you. And underneath here, put the screw in and tighten it down. And if you have a screw that goes in up here, you can screw that in. If you have a shield that goes under here, you want to put this in at this time. This vehicle doesn't have one. Now I take this panel, slide this in place. Get all the screws started. Those are all in. Tighten those up. And then all around there, you want to tighten all those up. And then you can do the same on the other side. Where this bracket is for the headlight, what you want to do is clean this out as much as possible. You can use some compressed air. You really don't want to lubricate this with anything, or otherwise you're going to have more dirt get stuck in there. So just try to clean it out the best you can. You don't want to use any brake parts cleaner or anything that's going to ruin the plastic. You could use a little soapy water if you wanted to, and then spray it down again. Now it's time to install the headlights, and if you're having any trouble with the fitment, trying to get this lever to line up correctly, there is an adjustment here. Use an 8mm socket. Loosen up the bolts right here, just loose, you don't have to take it out. And then there's another one over here. And then this piece moves. It can move towards the back of the vehicle, or it can move to the front of the vehicle. I personally would move it to the front of the vehicle and see how the fitment is around the headlight. Make sure that's good, and then readjust accordingly. Then you can snug these down. Now we'll connect the connector and line this up. There is these runners right here. Those are going to line up with those slots right there. Get those all lined up. So you push this in a little bit and grab that lever and adjust it down. Oh, there we go. And you want to make sure that gasket's out. All right, that's out. And now push the lever down, and that's locked in place. Now you can do the same on the other side. Put the wheel on, line it up. Take the lug bolt, get that started. And the wheel lock with the key. And then you can do the same on the other side. Line it up, put the bolts in. And the wheel lock key with the wheel lock. Just tighten those down. Now we're going to torque these lug bolts to 89 foot-pounds in a cross pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. And just go around again, double check. Take the key out and take the center cap. If that center ring popped out. You want to put that back in. Line that up. And pop it in place. Then if you have that little cap, you want to push that on.
Now you can do the same on the other side.
Just go around, double check. Take the key off. I'm going to take the battery, slide it in place. And take the hold down bracket. I'm going to slide that down at the base of the battery. Snug it down. I take the positive terminal, get that started. Snug that down, give it a shake, make sure it's tight. And then you can go to the negative, put the negative on, and the same deal. Tighten it down. Snug and give it a wiggle, and it's good, it's tight. Close the lid. At this point, you want to add the appropriate coolant into the reservoir. Start the vehicle up, let it run for about 10 to 15 minutes, monitoring to make sure that the engine's not overheating and checking the level. You may have to add a little bit of coolant, shut it off, put the cap on, let it cool down, and then adjust accordingly.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.